The small creature pressed itself against the cold metal bars of its cage. Its dark eyes watched the tall aliens walk past without looking down. The creature's body was thin and weak. Its gray fur was dirty and matted. Small cuts covered its arms and legs from the rough handling it received every day. The creature was called Kix, though the aliens never used its name. To them, it was just another worthless Nethri. The Zephyrian traders who owned it thought of it as nothing more than cargo, something to be sold or thrown away when it became too much trouble. Kix had been in this cage for many days now. The aliens fed it scraps of food that other species would not eat. They kicked the cage when it made any sound. They laughed when it tried to hide from their cruel games. The creature had learned to stay very still and very quiet, but today felt different. Kix could hear new voices in the cargo bay. These voices were softer than the harsh sounds the Zephyrians made. They spoke in shorter sentences with different rhythms. The creature lifted its head slightly to listen better. Captain Jake Miller stepped into the cargo bay of the massive alien ship. He was a human in his 40s with kind eyes and graying hair. Behind him walked Commander Lisa White, a woman with short brown hair and a serious expression. They were here to buy supplies for their ship, the New Horizon. Jake looked around at the various goods the Zephyrians had for sale. Strange fruits from distant planets. Rare metals that sparkled under the lights. Advanced technology that humans were still learning to understand. But something else caught his attention. In the corner of the bay sat a small cage. Inside was a creature unlike any Jake had seen before. It was about the size of a human child, but covered in gray fur. Its large dark eyes seemed to hold an intelligence. That surprised him. "What is that?" Jake asked the Zephyrian trader. The alien looked where Jake was pointing and made a dismissive sound. "That is just a Nethri. Worthless creatures. We use them for cleaning and other simple tasks. This one is too weak to work anymore." Lisa walked closer to the cage. The creature inside did not run away or show fear like a wild animal might. Instead, it watched her with careful attention. Its eyes followed her movements as if it was trying to understand what she might do. "It looks hungry," Lisa said quietly. The Zephyrian trader laughed. "They are always hungry. Greedy little things. But they are too stupid to earn their food. This one will probably die soon." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. He had seen how the Zephyrians treated other species they considered beneath them, but this seemed especially cruel. The creature in the cage was clearly intelligent. It was listening to their conversation and reacting to what it heard. Dr. Kevin Brown, the ship's doctor and scientist, joined them in the cargo bay. He was a tall man with glasses who studied alien life forms. When he saw the creature, his eyes widened with interest. "Fascinating," Kevin said as he knelt near the cage. "I have read about the Nethri, but never seen one in person. They are supposed to be one of the most widespread species in the galaxy." "Widespread like a disease," the Zephyrian trader said with disgust. "They are on every world, in every city, always begging for food or work. They breed too quickly and take resources from better species." Jake watched the creature's reaction to these harsh words. He saw pain in its eyes. Not just physical pain from hunger and abuse, but emotional pain from being hated and rejected. The creature understood every word being said about it. "How much do you want for it?" Jake asked suddenly. Lisa looked at him with surprise. "Captain, what are you doing?" The Zephyrian trader's eyes lit up with greed. "You want to buy this worthless thing? I will sell it to you for 50 credits. "That's too much for something worthless," Jake said calmly. "I'll give you 10 credits. The alien considered this. 10 credits was more than he expected to get for a dying Nethri. 20 credits, and you take it now. 15 credits, Jake countered. "Deal," the trader said quickly. He was happy to get rid of the creature and make some profit too. As Jake transferred the credits from his account, Lisa pulled him aside. Jake, what are you thinking? We can't take care of an alien pet. We don't know anything about its needs or behavior. Look at it, Lisa, Jake said softly. Really look at it. That's not an animal. That's a person. A person who has been treated like garbage for so long that it has forgotten how to hope. Kevin was already scanning the creature with his medical equipment. Its vital signs are weak but stable. It's malnourished and shows signs of physical trauma. But there's something else. The brain scans are showing unusual activity patterns. The Zephyrian trader opened the cage and roughly grabbed the creature by its arm. Kix made a small sound of pain, but did not fight back. It had learned that fighting only made the punishment worse. Here is your new pet, human, the trader said as he shoved the creature toward Jake. Do not come crying to me when it dies or causes trouble. Jake caught the creature gently before it could fall. Kix looked up at him with wide eyes full of fear and confusion. But there was something else there too. A tiny spark of something that might have been hope. It's okay, Jake said in a soft voice. We're going to take care of you. The creature did not understand all the words, but it understood the tone. This human was different from the others. This human was not going to hurt it. As they walked back to their ship, Lisa shook her head. I hope you know what you're doing, Jake. Jake looked down at the small creature walking beside him. It stayed close, but did not try to run away. It seemed to understand that these humans were its best chance for survival. So do I, Jake said quietly. So do I. Behind them, the Zephyrian traders laughed and joked about the foolish humans who had wasted their money on a worthless creature. They had no idea that this simple act of kindness would change the fate of the entire galaxy. The creature that everyone called worthless had finally found someone who might see its true value. And that would make all the difference in the universe. The New Horizon was a medium-sized exploration ship built by humans for long journeys through space. It had comfortable quarters for its crew of 20 people and laboratories for studying new worlds and life forms. But it was not designed to house alien creatures. Dr. Kevin Brown led the small creature to the medical bay. The creature walked slowly, its head turning to look at everything around it. The clean white walls and bright lights were very different from the dark, dirty cargo bay where it had lived for so long. Let's call you Kix, Kevin said gently. That seems to be the sound you make when you're content. The creature looked up at him when he said the name. Its large dark eyes seemed to understand that this sound was meant for it. Kix made a soft clicking noise and tilted its head to one side. Chief Engineer Matt Johnson was not happy about their new passenger. He was a practical man who worried about resources and safety. We don't have extra food or space for pets, he told Captain Miller. What if it carries diseases? What if it becomes aggressive? It's not a pet, Jake replied firmly. It's a refugee, and we're going to treat it with dignity. Communications Officer Amy Davis was more worried about regulations. Captain, there are rules about bringing alien species aboard human ships. We need permits and quarantine procedures. The rules were written by people who never saw a living being treated like garbage, Jake said. Sometimes you have to do what's right first and worry about the rules later. In the medical bay, Kevin began his examination of Kix. The creature seemed nervous, but did not resist. When Kevin approached with his scanning equipment, Kix watched carefully, but held still. It was as if the creature understood that this human was trying to help. Remarkable, Kevin said as he studied the readings. Its brain structure is far more complex than the reports suggested. The areas associated with learning and memory are highly developed. Security Chief Ryan Clark stood near the door with his arms crossed. He was a large man with a suspicious nature who did not trust easily. Just because it has a big brain doesn't mean it's friendly. Some of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy are very intelligent. But as Ryan watched, something changed his mind. Kevin accidentally knocked over a small container of medical supplies. Before Kevin could react, Kix quickly reached out and caught the container before it hit the floor. The creature then carefully placed it back on the table. "Did you see that?" Ryan asked with surprise. It helped him, without being asked. Navigator Grace Lee was working at her station when she heard the commotion. She was a young woman with a talent for understanding alien languages and cultures. When she came to see what was happening, she brought her data pad with her. Grace was reviewing star charts when she accidentally dropped the pad near Kix's feet. The small device clattered on the floor and slid under a cabinet. Grace sighed and got down on her hands and knees to retrieve it. But before she could reach it, Kix got down and crawled under the cabinet. The creature's smaller size made it easy for it to reach the pad. Instead of keeping it or ignoring it, Kix carefully picked up the device and handed it back to Grace. "Thank you," Grace said automatically. Then she realized what had happened. "You understood that I needed help, and you helped me." Kix made its soft clicking sound and looked at Grace with what seemed like pleasure. The creature appeared to enjoy being helpful and appreciated. Over the next few days, the crew began to notice more examples of Kix's intelligence. The creature watched everything with intense interest. It seemed to be learning the layout of the ship and the routines of the crew members. When engineer Carl Adams was working on a repair in a tight space, Kix appeared beside him. The creature observed Carl's work and began handing him tools before Carl asked for them. It was as if Kix could predict what Carl needed based on the pattern of his work. "This is incredible," Carl said to the others. "It's like having an assistant who can read my mind. It understands what I'm trying to do and helps me do it better." But the most amazing discovery came when Dr. Brown was running language tests. He played recordings of different sounds and watched Kix's reactions. The creature showed clear recognition of many galactic languages, including some that were supposed to be secret military codes. How does it know these languages? Kevin wondered aloud. Amy Davis had an idea. Maybe they learn by listening. If the Nethri are used as servants throughout the galaxy, they would hear many different languages and conversations. But that would mean they understand far more than anyone realizes, Grace said. They've been listening to everything for generations. The crew began to see Kix differently. This was not a simple creature that followed basic commands. This was an intelligent being who had been hiding its abilities to survive in a hostile galaxy. Jake spent time with Kix every day, bringing food and trying to communicate. The creature was slowly gaining weight, and its fur was becoming cleaner and softer. But more importantly, Kix was beginning to trust the humans. One evening, Jake was sitting in his quarters reading reports when Kix approached him. The creature had been given freedom to move around the ship during the day, though it always returned to the medical bay at night. "Hello, Kix," Jake said softly. "How are you feeling today?" The creature looked at him for a long moment. Then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, it said, "Hello." Jake nearly dropped his datapad. "Did you just speak?" Kix nodded slowly. "Hello," it repeated, this time a little louder. Jake called the rest of the crew to his quarters. When they arrived, Kix was sitting quietly next to Jake's chair. The creature looked nervous with so many people around. "Show them what you can do," Jake said gently. Kix looked at each crew member in turn. Then it spoke in a clear, soft voice. "Hello. Thank you. Help." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the small creature who had just spoken their language. Amy Davis was the first to recover from her shock. "How long have you been able to speak?" she asked. Kix considered the question carefully. "Always listen. Always learn. Never safe to speak." "Never safe," Grace repeated. You mean it was dangerous? For you to show that you could understand and speak? Kix nodded vigorously. Smart Netheri are dangerous Netheri. Dangerous Netheri are dead Netheri. The crew members looked at each other with growing understanding. The Netheri had been hiding their intelligence to survive. If the galactic powers knew how smart they really were, they would be seen as a threat instead of useful slaves. You're safe here, Jake said firmly. We will never hurt you for being intelligent. Kix looked at him with eyes full of hope and fear. Promise? I promise, Jake said. We all promise. The other crew members nodded their agreement. Even Matt. Johnson, who had been skeptical about keeping Kix, now understood that they were not harboring a pet. They were protecting a refugee from a species that had been systematically oppressed for generations. What else can you tell us about your people? Kevin asked gently. Kix was quiet for a long time. Then it spoke in a voice filled with sadness. My people are everywhere. On every ship, every station, every world. We clean, we serve, we listen. But we are not allowed to be ourselves. How many of you are there? Grace asked. Millions, Kix said. Maybe more. Scattered across the galaxy. All hiding, all afraid. The crew realized they had stumbled onto something much bigger than they had imagined. The Netheri were not just an oppressed species. They were a vast network of intelligent beings who had been forced to hide their true nature for survival. We want to help, Jake said. Tell us how we can help your people. Kix looked at him with gratitude and something that might have been the beginning of hope. First, help me remember how to be myself. I have been hiding for so long, I almost forgot who I really am. Jake smiled. We can do that. We'll help you remember, and maybe you can help us understand what it means to be truly human. The creature that had been considered worthless was beginning to find its voice. And with that voice would come truths that would shake the foundation of the galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since Kix first spoke to the crew. The small creature had changed dramatically in that time. Its fur was now clean and shiny. Its body had filled out with proper food and care. But the biggest change was in its confidence. Ki no longer flinched when humans approached. Instead, it would greet them with its soft clicking sound and clear words. The creature had learned to say each crew member's name and had developed a basic vocabulary of several hundred words. Engineer Carl Adams had become particularly close to Kix. The creature followed him during his work shifts, learning about the ship's systems and helping with repairs. Carl was amazed by how quickly Kix learned to identify different tools and components. Hand me the plasma wrench, Carl said one morning while working on a power coupling. Kix immediately picked up the correct tool and placed it in Carl's hand. But then the creature did something that surprised Carl. Kix pointed to a different part of the coupling and made a concerned sound. What is it? Carl asked. Kix struggled to find the right words. Bad connection. Will break soon? Carl looked where Kix was pointing. At first, he saw nothing wrong. But when he ran a diagnostic scan, the results showed exactly what Kix had predicted. The connection was deteriorating and would have failed within a few days. How did you know? That? Carl asked in amazement. Kix tapped its large ear. Listen. Small sounds tell big stories. Carl realized that Kix's hearing was far more sensitive than human hearing. The creature could detect subtle changes in the electrical hum that indicated problems before they became obvious. You could help us prevent breakdowns before they happen, Carl said excitedly. You could save us time and prevent dangerous failures. But Kix looked worried. Is it safe to help? Will you still want me if I am too useful? Carl's heart broke. At the question, Kix, we want you to be yourself. All of yourself. Your intelligence and skills make you more valuable to us, not less. Meanwhile, Dr. Kevin Brown was making his own discoveries about Kix's abilities. During their daily sessions, he noticed that the creature seemed to understand complex medical concepts with very little explanation. Kix, do you know anything about biology? Kevin asked one day. The creature nodded eagerly. Nethri must know bodies. We take care of sick ones sometimes. Not allowed to say we know, but we learn by watching. Kevin showed Kix some basic medical scans. The creature studied them carefully and then pointed to several areas of concern that Kevin had missed. This person has early infection, Kix said, pointing to a shadow on the scan. This one has bone weakness. Need more calcium. Kevin checked Kix's observations and found them to be completely accurate. The creature had diagnostic abilities that rivaled trained medical professionals. Have you ever treated patients yourself? Kevin asked. Kix looked sad. Sometimes, when Master's not watching. Save lives, but pretend it was luck or accident. Never. Get credit, but lives saved is enough. Kevin began to understand the tragedy of the Nethri people. They possessed incredible abilities, but were forced to hide them, helping others in secret while receiving no recognition or respect. Navigator Graceley was working on her own project with Kix. She had been teaching the creature to read human writing and was amazed by how quickly it learned. But she also noticed that Kix could read several alien languages that Grace had never seen before. Where did you learn these languages? Grace asked. From listening, Kix explained. Nethri hear many languages on many ships. We remember everything, because we never know when knowledge will save our lives. Grace realized that Kix might possess the most comprehensive linguistic knowledge of any being in the galaxy. The creature had been exposed to languages from hundreds of different species across thousands of worlds. Could you help us communicate with species we've never met before? Grace asked. Kix nodded enthusiastically. Yes, patterns are similar. New languages follow old rules. I can help you understand. But their peaceful progress was about to be interrupted. Captain Jake Miller received an urgent message on his private communication channel. The sender was Admiral Helen Ross, the head of Earth's Deep Space Command. Captain Miller, the Admiral's voice was grave. We have a situation. The Zephyrian Empire has issued an ultimatum to Earth. They are demanding that we stop our interference with the natural order of galactic society. Jake's blood ran cold. What kind of interference? They claim that humans are encouraging lesser species to behave above their station. They specifically mentioned reports of humans treating Nethri as equals. They want us to prove our commitment to galactic law by surrendering any Nethri in our custody. Jake looked at Kix, who was helping Amy Davis with some routine maintenance. Nearby, the creature had become a valued member of their crew and a friend to everyone on the ship. Admiral, the Nethri aren't lesser species. They're intelligent beings who have been oppressed and abused. We can't just hand them over to be mistreated. I understand your position, Captain, the Admiral replied. But the Zephyrians have backing from most of the galactic powers. They're threatening to cut off trade relationships and impose military sanctions if we don't comply. Jake felt sick. What are our orders? Officially, you are ordered to surrender any Nethri in your custody to the nearest Zephyrian authority, the Admiral sighed. Unofficially, I'm giving you 72 hours to find a better solution. After the communication ended, Jake called his senior staff together. Kix asked to attend the meeting, sensing that something important was happening. The Zephyrians won't. Used to give up Kix, Jake explained. They see our treatment of the Nethri as a threat to their social order. Kix listened to the discussion with growing fear. I will go, the creature said quietly. I will not let my presence cause trouble for humans. No, Lisa White said firmly. We're not giving up a member of our crew. But I am not really crew, Kix said sadly. I am just refugee you took pity on. You're wrong, Carl Adams said. You've saved us from equipment failures, helped with medical diagnosis, and taught us things we never could have learned on our own. You're not a refugee anymore. You're family." The other crew members nodded in agreement. Even Matt Johnson, who had been skeptical at first, now considered Kix an essential part of their team. "So what do we do?" Amy Davis asked. "We can't fight the entire Zephyrian Empire." Kix had been listening carefully to their discussion. Now the creature spoke up with a suggestion that surprised everyone. "Maybe we do not have to fight alone," Kix said. "Maybe other Nethri want to stop hiding too. Maybe they are tired of being treated as worthless." Dr. Brown leaned forward with interest. "Are you suggesting that we try to contact other Nethri?" "Yes," Kix said, its voice growing stronger. "Nethri are everywhere. On Zephyrian ships, on their stations, on their worlds. We see everything, hear everything. We know things that could help humans." Grace Lee understood immediately. "You're talking about a resistance movement." "I am talking about my people remembering who they really are," Kix said. "And maybe, with human help, we can show the galaxy that we are not worthless." Jake felt a mixture of excitement and fear. What Kix was suggesting could change everything, but it would also put them in direct conflict with the most powerful forces in the galaxy. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked. "Once we start down this path, there's no going back." Kix looked at him with determination. "I have been hiding my whole life. I am tired of being afraid. I want to be myself, even if it is dangerous." The crew exchanged glances. They had taken in a scared, abused creature and watched it transform into a confident, capable being. Now that being was asking them to help it liberate its entire species. "All right," Jake said finally. "Let's see if we can contact other Nethri. But we need to be careful. If the Zephyrians find out what we're doing, they'll consider it an act of war." Kix made its happy clicking sound. "Thank you. My people have been waiting for someone to see us as we really are. Maybe now they will remember that they are worth something after all." The creature that had been considered worthless was about to discover that it was part of something much bigger than anyone had imagined, and that discovery would change the fate of the galaxy forever. Communications Officer Amy Davis worked with Kix to set up a special communication system. They needed to contact other Nethri across the galaxy without alerting the Zephyrian authorities. Kix knew the secret frequencies that the Nethri used to communicate with each other. "We use very quiet signals," Kix explained, "like whispers in a crowded room. Only Nethri know how to hear them." Amy was fascinated by the sophisticated communication network the Nethri had developed. "How long have you been using this system?" "Many generations," Kix said. "We needed to warn each other about dangerous masters or share information about safe places to hide. The first response came within hours. A Nethri on a trading station near the galactic core had heard their signal. Soon, more responses arrived from across the galaxy. Nethri on cargo ships, space stations, and planet surfaces began to communicate with a new horizon. Dr. Kevin Brown was amazed by what they learned. "There are millions of them," he said to Captain Miller. "They're everywhere, and they've been sharing information for centuries." The Nethri revealed secrets that shocked the human crew. They knew about hidden military installations, secret trade routes, and classified research projects. They had been invisible servants for so long that their masters had forgotten they were listening. "We know where the Zephyrians keep their new weapons," one Nethri reported. "We built them, but they think we do not understand what we built." Another Nethri on a diplomatic vessel shared information about political alliances and secret agreements between different alien species. The network of hidden intelligence was vast and detailed. But the most important discovery came from a Nethri named Zara, who worked on a Zephyrian military command ship. She contacted Kix with urgent news. The Zephyrians are planning more than just taking back the Nethri, Zara reported. They want to destroy the humans completely. They see you as a threat to their entire way of life. Captain Miller felt his blood run cold. What kind of threat? You treat other species as equals. Kix translated Zara's message. This makes other species ask why they should accept being treated badly. The Zephyrians want to stop this idea before it spreads. The crew realized they were facing a much bigger crisis than they had imagined. The Zephyrians were not just demanding the return of one Nethri. They were planning to eliminate humanity to protect their social order. How much time do we have? Lisa White asked. Kix consulted with the other Nethri through their communication network. The Zephyrian war fleet is gathering at the Kronos system. They plan to attack human colonies in 2 weeks. Jake knew they had to warn Earth immediately. But when he tried to send the message through official channels, he discovered that the Zephyrians had already begun their campaign. Human communication networks were being jammed, and Earth's diplomatic messages were being intercepted. We're on our own, Jake realized. Earth doesn't know what's coming. Engineer Carl Adams had been working with several Nethri to understand Zephyrian technology. What he learned was disturbing. Their weapons are far more advanced than ours, Carl reported. But according to the Nethri, they have weaknesses. The Nethri built most of their systems, so they know how to disable them. Kix nodded eagerly. Nethri can help. We know every ship, every station, every weapon. We can make them stop working. Security Chief Ryan Clark was skeptical. That would require the Nethri to reveal themselves. If they're discovered, they'll be killed. Some of us are ready to stop hiding, Kix said firmly. We are tired of being afraid. We want to fight for our freedom. Dr. Brown had been analyzing the genetic and psychological profiles of the Nethri. His findings were remarkable. The Nethri are not just intelligent, he explained to the crew. They're actually more advanced than most species in the galaxy. Their brains are designed for complex problem-solving and social cooperation. They've been systematically broken down by generations of abuse. You mean they're naturally smarter than the species that enslaved them? Grace Lee asked. Much smarter, Kevin confirmed. The Nethri have been hiding their true capabilities for so long that they've almost forgotten what they're capable of. This revelation changed everything. The crew realized they were not just helping an oppressed species. They were potentially awakening a civilization that could revolutionize the galaxy. Kix had been listening to their discussions with growing excitement. If my people remember who they really are, we can do amazing things. We can build better technology, solve complex problems, create new medicines. But first, we need to survive the Zephyrian attack, Jake said practically. The crew worked around the clock to develop a plan. They would use the Nethri communication network to coordinate a galaxy-wide resistance. When the Zephyrians attacked, the Nethri would sabotage their ships from within while human forces engaged them in battle. Amy Davis established secure communication links with Nethri across the galaxy. Each group received specific instructions for their part in the resistance. Remember, Kix broadcast to its people, we are not worthless, we are not weak. We are intelligent beings who deserve respect and freedom. The response was overwhelming. Nethri, who had been hiding for their entire lives, began to speak up. They shared their knowledge, their skills, and their determination to change their situation. Matt Johnson worked with Nethri engineers to modify human weapons and defenses. The improvements were remarkable. Nethri understanding of energy systems and material science far exceeded human knowledge. With their help, we might actually have a chance, Matt said with amazement. But the Zephyrians were not stupid. They began to suspect that something was wrong when their communication systems started experiencing mysterious failures. They increased security and began questioning their Nethri servants more closely. Several Nethri were caught trying to access restricted information. The punishment was swift and brutal. The Zephyrians made examples of them to frighten the others back into submission. News of these executions reached the New Horizon through the Nethri network. Kix was devastated by the loss of friends and fellow freedom fighters. They died because they believed in what we are doing, Kix said through tears. They died because they wanted to be free. The crew held a memorial service for the fallen Nethri. It was the first time in galactic history that members of another species had honored Nethri who had died fighting for their freedom. They will not be forgotten, Jake promised. Their sacrifice will give meaning to what we're trying to accomplish. The deadline was approaching. In just a few days, the Zephyrian fleet would attack human colonies. The resistance had to be ready. Navigator Grace Lee had been working with Nethri across the galaxy to identify the best targets for sabotage. The plan was complex and dangerous, but it was their only hope. We'll have one chance, Grace explained. If we can disable their command ships and weapon systems at the same time, we might be able to even the odds. Kix stood before the human crew, no longer the frightened, worthless creature they had rescued. It was now a leader, a symbol of hope. For an entire species, my people are ready, Kix announced. We have been hiding for too long. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy who we really are. The crew looked at their small friend with pride and respect. The creature they had saved had become the key to saving them all. Are you scared? Jake asked gently. Kix nodded honestly. Yes, but I am more tired of being afraid than I am afraid of fighting. The battle for freedom was about to begin. The creature that had been considered worthless was about to prove that it was worth everything. The day of the battle arrived with tension, filling the air aboard the New Horizon. Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge, watching the sensor readings that showed the massive Zephyrian fleet approaching human space. 200 warships each, one larger and more powerful than anything Earth had ever built. Kix stood beside him, no longer the scared creature cowering in a cage. The small being wore a communication device that connected it to Nethri across the galaxy. Its dark eyes were filled with determination. Are your people ready? Jake asked softly. Kix nodded. We have been ready for generations. We just needed someone to believe in us. The human defense fleet was much smaller than the Zephyrian force. Only 30 ships, including the New Horizon, stood between the alien invaders and the human colonies. But they were not alone. Hidden throughout the Zephyrian fleet were thousands of Nethri, ready to strike from within. Admiral Helen Ross's voice crackled over the communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Ross. Today, we fight not just for humanity, but for the idea that all intelligent beings deserve freedom and respect. The battle began when the Zephyrian fleet entered human space. Their massive ships opened fire with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The human ships fought back bravely, but they were clearly outmatched. Now, Jake said to Kix. Kix activated its communication device and sent a signal across the galaxy. My people, it is time. Show them who we really are. The response was immediate and devastating to the Zephyrian fleet. Across hundreds of ships, Nethri, who had been invisible servants for decades, suddenly revealed their true capabilities. They disabled weapon systems, shut down shields, and opened airlocks in strategic locations. On the Zephyrian flagship, a Nethri named Zara calmly walked to the main computer core. The guards ignored her, as they had done for years. She was just another worthless servant. But when she reached the computer, she input a sequence of commands that she had memorized long ago. The ship's entire navigation system failed. The flagship began to drift helplessly through space as its crew frantically tried to regain control. Similar scenes played out across the Zephyrian fleet. Nethri, who had been treated as furniture, suddenly became the most dangerous beings on each ship. They knew every system, every weakness, every secret passage. They had been watching and learning for generations. Impossible, the Zephyrian admiral screamed as his fleet fell apart around him. The Nethri are too stupid to do this. But they were not stupid. They were brilliant. And they were angry. Dr. Kevin Brown watched the battle from the New Horizons medical bay. The Zephyrian ships are losing power across the fleet. The Nethri are disabling their primary systems. Engineer Carl Adams monitored the technical aspects of the sabotage. This is incredible. The Nethri know those ships better than the crews that operate them. They're taking apart the entire fleet from the inside. The tide of battle turned completely. Human ships that had been retreating suddenly found themselves facing disabled enemies. The Zephyrian weapons fell silent as power systems failed. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were now floating helplessly in space. But the Nethri were not finished. Communications Officer Amy Davis detected new signals coming from Zephyrian territory. Captain, we're getting reports from across the galaxy. The Nethri are rising up everywhere. On Zephyrian colonies, Nethri who had been cleaning buildings and maintaining equipment suddenly took control of entire cities. They knew where everything was, how everything worked, and how to shut it all down. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled through fear and oppression for centuries, collapsed in a matter of hours. Their power had been built on the backs of beings they considered worthless. When those beings decided to stop cooperating, the empire crumbled. Kix watched the battle results with tears in its eyes. "My people are free," it whispered. "After so long, we are finally free." But freedom came with a price. Many Nethri died in the uprising, killed by guards who realized too late what was happening. The survivors mourned their fallen friends while celebrating their liberation. Captain Miller received a transmission from the Zephyrian admiral. The alien's voice was filled with rage and disbelief. "This is not over, human. Other species will. See what you have done. They will unite against you." "Maybe," Jake replied calmly. "But they'll also see what happens when you treat intelligent beings as equals instead of slaves. Some of them might decide they want that kind of respect too." The admiral's transmission ended abruptly. The Zephyrian fleet was in full retreat, their ships limping away from human space. In the days that followed, the galaxy was transformed. The Nethri emerged from hiding and revealed the full extent of their civilization. They had art, science, philosophy, and technology that amazed other species. They had been hiding all of it to survive. Kix became an ambassador, traveling between human and Nethri communities to help build a new relationship based on equality and mutual respect. The creature that had once been kicked around in a cage now spoke before audiences of thousands. "We were never worthless," Kix said in one of its speeches. "We were just waiting for someone to see our worth. The humans did not save us. They helped us remember how to save ourselves." Dr. Brown established the first interspecies medical research facility where human and Nethri doctors worked together to develop new treatments for diseases that affected both species. The collaboration produced breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. Engineer Carl Adams worked with Nethri technicians to design new types of spacecraft that were faster, safer, and more efficient than anything previously built. The combination of human innovation and Nethri precision created remarkable results. Navigator Grace Lee helped establish a new galactic communication network that allowed all species to communicate as equals. The old system, which had been controlled by the major powers, was replaced by one that gave every species a voice. Other alien species began to question their own treatment of those they considered inferior. Some chose to continue the old ways, but others decided to follow the human example. The galaxy slowly began to change. The Zephyrian Empire never recovered from the uprising. Their society had been built on the assumption that they were superior to other species. When that assumption was proven false, they struggled to find a new identity. Some Zephyrians chose to embrace the new order and work toward equality. Others retreated to isolated worlds, refusing to accept the changes. But their time of dominance was over. A year after the battle, Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the New Horizon with Kix beside him. They were exploring a new sector of space, looking for other species that might want to join their growing alliance of equals. "Do you ever miss the old days?" Jake asked. "When things were simpler?" Kix considered the question carefully. "I miss feeling safe," it admitted. "But I do not miss feeling worthless. I would rather be free and frightened than safe and empty." Jake nodded. "I understand. Freedom always comes with risks. But it also comes with possibilities," Kix added. "My people are building new cities, creating new art, developing new technologies. We are becoming who we were always meant to be." They detected a signal from an unknown species on a nearby planet. The message was simple. "We have heard about humans and Netheri. We want to learn about equality. Will you teach us?" Jake smiled and looked at Kix. "What do you think? Are you ready to help another species discover its worth?" Kix made its happy, clicking sound. "Always. Every being deserves to know they are valuable." The New Horizon changed course toward the planet. Captain Miller and his crew, both human and Netheri, were ready to spread their message of equality and respect to a new world. The creature that had been considered worthless had helped transform the galaxy. It had shown that love and respect could unlock potential that fear and hatred kept hidden. And it had proved that every intelligent being, no matter how small or different, had something valuable to offer. The galaxy was still dangerous, and there were still species that believed in domination and oppression. But now there was also hope. There were humans and Netheri, and others who believed that all beings deserved dignity and freedom. And that belief was spreading, one world at a time, one species at a time, one act of kindness at a time. The creature was no longer considered worthless. It was considered a friend, a colleague, and a symbol of what was possible when different species worked together as equals. And in the end, that made all the difference in the universe.